So without any further ado, like I say, I'm really honoured. I'm very much here as an accompaniment. I think the team here at Karima thought he's a doctor, he can sit at the front. But it's really my honour to be here next to Professor Maynard, Professor Nick Maynard, who's a leading upper GI consultant at Oxford University Hospitals Trust. He is president of the AUGIS, Association of Upper GI Surgeons of Great Britain and Ireland. He's got over 25 years of experience in his field, and he has also been doing some amazing, incredible work for well over 10 years now, regularly in Palestine, in Gaza, which we're looking forward to hearing more about. Over to you, Professor Maynard. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that introduction, and thank you for inviting me. It's a great honour to be here. I don't really need to be persuaded to talk about Gaza and Palestine, not only because of the appalling things that are going on there at the moment, but it's a place that's been embedded in my heart for many years, and I love talking about it. And I've got a lot of friends there and people who I think of as family. And I'm going to talk a bit about the horrors that are going on there and why we all need to hear about it, talk about it, spread the word, and try and raise awareness, raise money to support the Palestinians. But I'm going to start off by telling you a story about a friend of mine. His name was Maysara. He was a young doctor in Gaza, just over 30. I taught him. I've been going out to Gaza for nearly 15 years. I teach surgeons there, but I also spend a lot of time teaching medical students there. And Maysara was one of the medical students I taught years ago. Watched him qualify as a doctor. When I went to Gaza, I used to visit him and his family, eat dinner at their table. He got a scholarship to get out of Gaza. It's very difficult to do that. Very few people get out of Gaza. He got a scholarship to get out of Gaza, and came to England to study, to train. And he stayed with us. He visited us. I've got lovely photographs of him sitting at our kitchen table with my children, dining with us. And he went back to Gaza because he wanted to use his knowledge and his training to go and help the people in Gaza. And he went and started working for an NGO called Médecins du Monde to help use his experience to treat patients in Gaza. He got married a year ago, had a beautiful young wife who was pregnant with their first child. And at the beginning of November, about 4 weeks after the appalling atrocities of October the 7th, his wife went out, and Maysara and his parents and his sisters were in their house when an Israeli Defense Force airstrike hit the house and killed them all. So Maysara was killed on November the 8th. His wife wasn't. His wife survived. His two brothers were out of the house at the time, and they survived as well. They spent 2 days searching for him and their parents and their sisters under the rubble. And 2 days later, after they'd been searching non-stop, the Israeli Defense Force carried out another airstrike and killed them. Now, I heard about this a few days later, and it was obviously very distressing to me and my family and to many others because we knew him so well. And when I was in Gaza a few weeks ago, I met Maysara's best friend, Khaled, who I've known for many years. He's a doctor as well. And he was Maysara's best friend. And a week before Maysara was killed, he opened his heart out to Khaled. Had just found out that his wife was pregnant, and he was loving being back in Gaza. And he said to Khaled, and Khaled was telling me the story with tears streaming down his face. And Khaled said that Maysara had said to him that his greatest fear was being killed by the Israeli Defense Force airstrikes and being left buried under the rubble without his body being discovered. He's still buried under the rubble. His body still hasn't been discovered. And Khaled, his best friend, with tears streaming down his face, saying one of the many, many distresses they all had was they couldn't bury their best friend. And that's Maysara. One of his very close friends is a young female doctor called Inas, Ines Alalul. And she is what my wife and I call our adopted Gazan daughter. She got out a year before my Sarah and came to work in England. She stayed in England and she's become a member of our family. She's never been able to go back to Gaza. She hasn't seen her family for 7 years because they're in Gaza. So every time I go to Gaza, I see her family and meet up with them, have dinner with them, hug them, laugh with them, cry with them. And Ines has got married. When she got married, because her family couldn't come, I gave her away at the wedding. When she was pregnant with her first child, my wife looked after her. And Ines is trying to get her family out of Gaza at the moment, and we're trying to raise money for that. Her family they used to live in Gaza City. They've been displaced 6 times now. They're living under threat of death every single day at the moment. They're starving. They've all lost a huge amount of weight. They sometimes can't find water to drink, and they've given up hope of staying in Gaza. So they're desperate to leave, and we're trying to raise money to get them out. And it's one of the fundraising things we're doing, the El Alul family. Now, as I said, I've been going to Gaza since 2010. I think it was the first year I went there. I'd been going to the West Bank quite a long time before then. But Gaza was where I really wanted to spend my time, and it's the place I've fallen in love with, and have got many, many close friends and family there. Since October the 7th, I've been on the phone, WhatsApping, messaging my friends and colleagues out there as much as we can, accepting that the telecommunications is pretty awful over there. But most days being in contact with people there and learning about the awful things that are going on. And so when I was asked to lead the first UK emergency medical team to go into Gaza, I said yes straight away because I wanted to go and help. And I thought I'd be ready for what I was going to see, because I've spent many years in Gaza. I've operated in their operating theatres. I was there as recent as last May, carrying out cancer surgery, teaching them how to do various forms of cancer surgery. And I'd heard the horrors. I thought I'd be ready for it. And I got to Gaza. We entered on Christmas Day, and I worked in Al-Aqsa Hospital, which is the main hospital in Middle Gaza, and indeed the only functioning hospital north of Khan Yunis, because all of northern Gaza, the hospitals have been disabled. And I wasn't prepared at all. I saw things there that I would never have expected to have seen in any healthcare setting. I saw little children with appalling burns, with appalling traumatic amputations, many of them dying in front of us because they couldn't be saved. I spent 2 weeks operating all day on people with the most appalling explosive injuries from bombs, and it was mainly women and children, very few men. More than 30,000 people. I'm not going to bore you with figures because you can see all the figures online in the newspapers. But more than 30,000 people have been killed now. More than 13,000 children have been killed. I'm going to give you some perspective. In Ukraine, which is the other war we all know about, and it's one that our media talks a lot about, our government talks a lot about, and quite rightly, our country has provided refuge for a lot of Ukrainians. In the 18 months of the Ukraine war, 9,800 people, non-combatants, have been killed. The rate of killing in Gaza since October the 7th is 15 times greater than that in Ukraine, but we don't really hear about that. More than 13,000 children have been killed. There's an acronym that you see in all the hospitals in Gaza, which should never exist in a civilized world, and it's WCNSF, a label put above a child. And WCNSF stands for Wounded Child, No Surviving Family. And most of the children we saw who came in with appalling injuries were orphaned because all their family had been killed. 136 children each day have been killed in Gaza. And again, I'm going to give you some perspective on that. In Ukraine, 0.7 children have been killed each day. During the Iraq War, which you will all remember, 0.6 children killed per day. In Syria, 3. Afghanistan, 2. In Gaza, 136. That's how many children are being killed every day in Gaza. You're not hearing that from the Western media, are you? 1.6 million people have been displaced. There's over 1 million people in Rafah now. I've been to Rafah. It's a small town. It normally has a population of just under 200,000. So imagine what the crowding is like there now. The healthcare system, I'm a doctor, I've seen what's been happening there. The healthcare system is being deliberately targeted and deliberately dismantled there. The hospital I worked in, on my penultimate day there, we had to evacuate at very short notice. I was operating all day on a terrible explosive injury to the abdomen and came out of theatres to find out there'd been a missile attack on the intensive care unit of the hospital I was working in. So we had to be evacuated straight away. MSF were there. They had to leave as well. This was one of many examples of hospitals being deliberately targeted by the Israeli Defense Force. And you've heard in the news in the last 2 or 3 weeks about Nasser Hospital, Nasser Medical Hospital, which was the last remaining big hospital in southern Gaza. That's now been completely disabled because it's been deliberately targeted and disabled by the Israelis. More than 400 healthcare workers have been killed. More than 200 healthcare workers have been abducted. Many of them friends of mine that I've worked with over the years. Multiple hospitals have been bombed. And I've seen hospitals being bombed there since 2014, so this is nothing new. But now there is virtually no functioning healthcare system in Gaza. There's one hospital which is partly functioning, and the others are barely functioning at all. And that's to deal with a population of over 2.2 million people. I think this is, I'm going to finish up now and take some questions. I think this is the single most important thing going on in the world at the moment. And in the true sense of the word, I find it utterly incredible that our government and the US government hasn't prioritized putting pressure on the Israelis to stop this monstrous mass slaughter of innocent civilians over there. I think how we behave as individuals, as societies, and as governments will define us. How we behave in response to what's happening in Gaza will define us. And the legacy of those governments that are failing to act, I think, will haunt them for many years to come. Everyone can do something. If you've got special skills, we will need many, many doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, physiotherapists, you name it, to come out there. But even if you haven't got those skills, you can raise awareness in this country. You can go on the vigils, the marches in London to raise awareness. It's terribly important. And spread the word, learn about what's going on, talk to people, and make sure everyone's aware of it, because our government isn't telling people, the media is not telling people. You need people who've been there, very few people have been there, to come and tell everyone the horrors that are going on over there. And don't forget, there are many families, like Inas's family, like the Al-Alul family, who have now very, very sadly given up hope and want to leave in order to save their lives.